I didn't leave the room over the course of the next few days. I don't even think I ate anything. Time had started to become a bit of a blur for me. I would pick up a book from the bookshelf and start reading it in the morning, and by the time Hieronymous got back at night, I would still be on the same page. Although he should have been there with me to celebrate the end of summer classes, he was busy interviewing replacements for his position. Potsdam had suggested using the summer months as a good way to help them get accustomed to the school, and Hieronymous had agreed. One night, I'm sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring out into the darkness. I can see the glow of a bonfire in the distance, and I just curl my knees into my chest and watch the slow dance of the flames. I remembered how, last year, I had fun with my friends, eating s'mores and chatting around the bonfire as we watched the graduating seniors spin fire. Of course, that had also been the same day that Hieronymous had gotten injured, and I didn't want to think about that right now. Or ever, really. The door opens and Hieronymous steps through. The past few days, I had made an extra effort to seem as cheerful as possible when he came in, and he seemed to be making an extra effort to be nicer to me, asking how my day was and what I had been reading. I didn't know how to tell him that I'd only been able to get through 3 pages in 4 days. I was lying to him. Again. But at least this time I felt like I had a good reason for it. Hieronymous was busy, and I couldn't distract him from his work to worry about me. "Tori?" he asks, but I was so preoccupied with my own thoughts that I don't even hear him. I didn't even realize he had entered the room. "Tori? Tori!" He comes around to stand around the side of the bed, and I jump as I suddenly take notice of him. "Hi," I say, trying to get my breathing under control. "I am so sorry. How long have you been standing there?" "I just got in," Hieronymous says, glancing nervously at me. "What were you thinking about?" "Nothing." I shake my head. "I don't know. I must have zoned out. I'm so sorry. Please don't worry about me. I'm okay." Hieronymous looks like he wants to say something before he glances out into the quad to see the flames flickering in the distance. "It's the bonfire tonight. Don't you want to spend time with your friends?" "It's okay," I tell him, pulling my knees into my chest as I rest my chin on my knees. "I should stay here and keep out of trouble." "Tori, there's no need to keep punishing yourself," Hieronymous says softly. "You can't lock yourself in here all summer." "I know," I reply softly before I just shrug. "I just don't feel well. I want to stay in." I hesitate. "But if it really means that much to you that I go, I'll go." "Not if you don't want to go." Hieronymous frowns as he comes over to the bed and puts his hand on my forehead. "You are warm. Have you eaten anything today?" I raise my shoulders and drop them. I don't want to lie to him, but I don't want him to worry about me. My stomach hurts. I don't know if I'd be able to keep anything down. Hieronymus' scowl deepens. "I'm going to take a shower and then we can cuddle up and go to bed, all right? We can always have our own little campfire another night." "Really?" I seem to perk up at this a little, and Hieronymus pushes a corner of his lips into a smile before he heads into the bathroom. It's not long until he returns, sitting down on the bed and pulling me into his lap like a little kid. "How was the rest of your day?" "Uneventful," I tell him. "How was yours?" "Uneventful," Hieronymus replies. Several candidates look promising. Considering how many posts I have assumed around the school, Potsdam is expecting to hire at least 3 or 4 new replacements, which means my summer will be a busy one. "That's okay," I reply softly as I intertwine our fingers together. "I'll just wait here for you to come back and stay out of trouble." "I don't like to see you isolating yourself from everyone," he says softly. "I have yet to speak to Miss Middleton about her part in all of this, but I can understand if you want to keep your distance from her for the time being. But what about Miss Danson? You haven't spent much time with her this year." "I know," I say softly. "I'm a bad best friend. I'm a bad best friend. I'm a bad wife. I'm a bad student. I'm a bad... Tori, stop, Hieronymous says firmly. I don't know why you suddenly seem so determined to punish yourself for every little thing, but this isn't like you. I miss your laugh. I miss your smile. I haven't seen you smile in days. I could have been expelled, I mutter softly, to no one in particular. I would have lost you. I would have lost me. I would have lost everything. It's okay, Tori, he says softly. I'm right here. I just nod. I don't know what else to say, and neither does he, it seems, as we just sit there in silence, wrapped up in each other. I don't even realize that I'm crying until Hieronymous wipes away a tear that has trickled down my cheek with his thumb. He puts his hand on my forehead, but moves it away almost instantly. Tori, you're burning up. Are you sure you didn't go outside at all? I can't help but look alarmed. No, I didn't. Of course I didn't. I'm not lying to you, I swear. And you didn't eat anything that would have given you food poisoning? I just shake my head. Hieronymous looks troubled, but I don't know what to say. Finally, he just sighs before he puts his hand on my forehead. You should get some rest. I just nod my head slowly as Hieronymous uses a sleep spell to lull me to sleep. Hieronymous looked down at Tori and brushed her hair back out of her face as he laid her back into the pillows. Something was definitely wrong, but he wasn't sure how to help her. Tori was depressed. That wasn't hard to figure out. He remembered how numb and despondent she was after she made the choice to have her parents forget who she was. It was like a light had gone out behind her eyes. That's exactly how she looked now, but he wasn't sure what he could do to help her. He had been strict with her to try to make her understand that the threat of her expulsion was real, but he wasn't going to tell Potsdam. He wasn't going to tell anyone. If he did, then she might truly be expelled, but he wasn't going to let that happen. He would do anything, absolutely anything, in his power not to let that happen. At first he thought that Tori was reckless just because she expected him to swoop in and save the day, but he was starting to wonder if something else was going on. Tori was, for all intents and purposes, not acting like Tori, but he wasn't quite sure what he could do to fix it. He knew he had to help train his replacement, but he almost considered asking Potsdam to give him a week or two off and take Tori on another vacation, just to give her a change of scenery. At first he took her suggestion to never leave the room all summer as hyperbole, but if the last few days had shown him anything, it seemed that she wasn't even going to leave the bed. She seemed to perk up a bit whenever he returned, but there was always something just so sad in her expression that he wasn't sure how to help her. These are the thoughts that stay with him until his eyelids eventually slip closed and he heads off to sleep. Feels like he's only asleep for a few minutes when suddenly he hears a knocking on the door. He blinks his eyes sleepily, glancing at the early sunrise through the window. Who would be up and looking for him at this early hour? Potsdam? But that wasn't her knock. This knock was gentle and polite, not insistent like Potsdam's always was. He sits up in bed only to see Tori immediately sit up beside him, her eyes wide with fear. What if they know? She whispers to him. What if they're going to take me away? I won't let that happen, he says reassuringly, smoothing her hair back as he kisses her forehead. A moment, if you please, Hieronymous says to the stranger behind the door, and there's silence as the knocking stops. He gets up and quickly puts on a shirt and a fresh pair of pants. He had no idea who was behind the door or what they wanted. Honestly, it was probably one of Tori's friends who was worried about her after she failed to show up to last night's bonfire. Who else could it be? But as he opens the door, he's surprised to see Trinity Darden standing there. Mornin', Hieronymous, she says. Sorry to wake you. May I come in? Of course, he replies, stepping aside, too shocked to say much else. He didn't know much about her, except that she lived about 45 minutes from the school. Class was no longer in session, and summer classes wouldn't start for at least a week yet. At the last faculty meeting, she had mentioned that she was going off to visit her family in Jamaica for a few weeks. So why was she entering his room at daybreak? He watches her walk straight over to Tori, who is still in bed in her pajamas. She looks nervous, and for a moment he has to wonder if there was something else that Tori wasn't telling him. "Hi there, hun," Trinity says gently. "How are you holding up?" "I'm, good," Tori replies. She glances at him out of the corner of her eye, and he realizes that Tori was just as confused as to why she was there as he was. Trinity lets out a soft chuckle. "That's good to hear, although you're feeling a bit tired, aren't you, Tori?" Tori shakes her head in confusion. Not really. I just woke up." Trinity just chuckles again as she takes her hand and wraps it around one of the symbols she wore around her neck. She starts to chant in a language even Hieronymous doesn't recognize. Tori looks at him nervously before her whole body seems to stiffen and her eyes roll back in her head as if she's having a seizure. Her eyes suddenly slip closed as she slumps lifelessly to the side. "Tori!" Hieronymous rushes over to her to make sure she was still breathing. "What did you do to her?" "She'll be alright," Trinity replies as she gets to her feet. "Sit down, Hieronymous. We need to talk."